now I have the great pleasure to welcome Natasa Pilides. Natasa is the Deputy Minister of Shipping. She's the first one to be appointed to this position as an independent ministry. So, Natasa, thank you for being with us, and the podium is yours. Of course.
Well, thank you very much, Nicholas. Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm delighted that there is a shipping panel included in this conference, and I'm also delighted to welcome the speakers of the next panel, who are really going to offer their insight as clients of the Cyprus flag and clients of our administration in terms of how they're experiencing Cyprus and whether what we're doing is hopefully working. So I'll give you a bit of background on what we're trying to do as public sector and how we view the development of the shipping deputy ministry in the next few years. So as Cyprus, we've been a maritime nation since very ancient times. In fact, back in sort of 500 BC, which was a long time ago, we had one of the largest fleets in the world, which was being provided to Persia, actually, at the time. But then when the kings of Cyprus revolted and decided that they were going to support Alexander the Great, they provided about 120 ships to Alexander for his battles. So today we have about 10 times those vessels in our registry, which is pretty good. We're still on the map. We're 11th largest fleet worldwide, but 3rd in the EU. And we're also within the top 3 ship management, third-party ship management locations in the world. So I'll give you a few figures later on that show how that reflects on the Cyprus economy, but it's around 7% contribution to our GDP. It's probably about 5,000 people employed onshore and 55,000 seafarers. Oops, I've gone a bit too far. But I'll show you the numbers of the fleet. So in 2018, we've got about 24 million gross tons, which shows steady growth in the last few years. We are really working on getting more ships under our flag, and hopefully that will be seen in results in years to come. In terms of the companies that are registered under our specific tax system for shipping companies, we've got huge increase in recent years. And I want to tell you that the 2018 column says 178. That was back in May, and I checked yesterday, and it's now 188. So we've done pretty well since the beginning of the deputy ministry. We've gone from 168 to 188, and hopefully we'll have even more companies added to that by the end of the year. So why is Cyprus important? I guess you've seen a lot of that in the previous discussions and what the other speakers have said, so I won't go into it in great detail, but it's important to know that there's a framework that is generally conducive to doing business, and that is very important to our clients, as well as the shipping-specific benefits, which are, of course, of major importance also. So in terms of our offering as a shipping nation, we want to have an excellent quality flag. That's very important to us. We have 150 people within the deputy ministry who specialize, well, some of them specialize on providing specific services to our ship owners when they need those services. We have, I'll talk about it later on, a few systems that make sure that that happens. But another driver of the economy is the fact that we now have a cluster which is fairly well developed. So when a ship owner or any shipping company bases itself in Cyprus, it can find a full range of services available to do anything that it wants to do in Cyprus. And that's really the aim, is to provide a very holistic solution to companies coming to Cyprus. So we've taken great steps in recent years to expand things like shipping finance, shipping insurance, all the sort of ancillary services that need to be in place. And that, of course, is very beneficial for the economy because it increases both the number of people that are employed in Cyprus, but also the level of expertise. And one of the reasons why we think we are attracting companies and getting them to stay and grow in Cyprus is that they can find that expertise at a relatively low cost compared to competitive jurisdictions. So there it is, our multilingual shipping workforce. And we're also a pretty good location. I think the previous panel sort of brought that out, that the geopolitical position of Cyprus does help. And we think that the energy opportunities will open up more prospects for shipping companies based and operating in the Eastern Mediterranean. Tax and legal, I guess it makes more of a difference these days that we're a common law jurisdiction, what with Brexit and everything that's happening, because our legal system is very, very business friendly. We definitely will try to preserve that. And we also have the tonnage tax system, which I showed earlier, the figures of the companies that are actually in the system. It's applicable to ship owners, charterers, and ship managers, so pretty comprehensive compared to other systems in the world. And it also has the advantage that it was the first one ever to have got approved by the EU, so we have the stamp of the EU in terms of its compatibility to the guidelines that we have to adhere to. In addition to that, I think you've heard all this stuff before. We've got the double tax treaties and the bilateral agreements on merchant shipping, which obviously help as well. So I mentioned the Deputy Ministry earlier as, well, Nicholas mentioned it as the first ever. We've been in existence since the 1st of March. But the Department of Merchant Shipping has existed since the 1970s, and that's what's transferred the level of expertise and knowledge into our Deputy Ministry. We have a big focus on excellence of service. It's what we want to do. We have 24/7 service available to our clients, people on mobile phones responding for emergency situations around the clock. And we've been many times to the office on a Christmas Day or Easter Day or whatever it might be to register a vessel or to do something important for our clients. So there is that level of enthusiasm and motivation carries down to every single person that works at the Deputy Ministry. So we're very proud of that. We're very proud of the specialization that our team has. And we're also or at least our calculators say, and our calculations say, that long-term we have the most competitive costs in the world, basically, when it comes to servicing our clients. So, you know, non-EU jurisdictions nowadays, there is a lot of talk about how competitive European shipping is and whether we are able to compete. I think we are able to compete, and we will definitely keep this as a core sort of driver of the development of our registry and our cluster. There's always a customer-orientated approach. We really appreciate our clients. We are very, very grateful to them for being in Cyprus, and we want to be doing a good job for them. So we have a committee that is in place, which basically includes representation from the private sector. They give us their feedback all the time, and all our plans are completely sort of transparently shared with our clients so that they know and they have a say on whether our services are good enough, whether they are proactive enough, the direction in which we need to go to continue improving. And those are things that we take on board very, very seriously. Maritime offices in 6 countries other than Cyprus, so that's also an important part of what we do. And we also try to have as much involvement in the EU, IMO, ILO, EMSA discussions on important matters for shipping. We think that being a large player in shipping comes with a degree of responsibility, and that responsibility is not just to the clients, it's to it's really to the world in terms of environmental issues, social issues, seafarers issues, but also in terms of the global shipping industry remaining sustainable and competitive, which is something that we very much want to ensure and contribute towards. So those are the pillars of our deputy ministry. We have rather a larger mandate because we cover very technical issues as well as very non-technical issues. So we try to offer one-stop services to our clients, so they can come to us with any problem, and we do try to resolve it. But we're trying to formalize that process so that we have a very sort of robust system that ensures that that is the case. We are also in charge of the integrated maritime policy, which is a big thing in Europe in terms of certain EU regulations that we have to adhere to. International relations, I've already mentioned. And then, of course, port state control, flag state control. We do have a level of expertise which we try to share. So we do seminars at EMSA, IMO level. We're part of the audits, and we offer our insight so that we can make sure that other countries which are perhaps less experienced in shipping are able to advance and basically implement IMO conventions and best practices in the best possible way. In terms of competitiveness, very active legal, tax, and registry departments which are now working on simplifying the rules even further, automating further so that we can remain competitive. Now, I mentioned the special relationship with the private sector and how that is really quite an important USP. And I wanted to show that here in terms of what that means. It means collaborating, but it also means maintaining a very professional relationship in terms of the regulatory side. So, so we try to combine that role in the best way we can. And finally, what do we do for CSR as a deputy ministry? We support research and innovation. There are a lot of projects going on which are trying to obtain EU funding. We think that's so important in terms of adding another element to our cluster, which basically will enable technological solutions to take the industry forward, particularly in things like environmentally friendly solutions, pollution reduction, cybersecurity, and other major issues that the industry is facing. We also do a lot to raise public awareness. We've got 3 maritime academies operating in Cyprus. We also approve and monitor another 9 in Greece and 1 in Zanzibar. So there's a lot of work that we do in terms of making sure that there is human talent available to feed into the industry. But we're also doing a lot of work to raise public awareness as to the careers available, blue careers we call them in maritime, and what people can do to get into the sector. And so local expertise, I think we have. I think one of our main issues in coming years will be to ensure that we have enough supply for the demand that is increasing. Hopefully we are taking a part or contributing to the reduction of unemployment and underemployment through the growth of the sector. So that's basically it from me. That's the end of the overview, and I'm sure the private sector will be able to add a lot of insight to that. Thank you. And happy to take any questions, actually, if there's anyone that wants to ask anything. Or... Yes, hello.
Okay, hello. Do you have any leverage in relation to the legislation, international legislation about shipping movements within the Mediterranean Sea? Because we know that Mediterranean Sea is a very close sea. Mm-hmm. Cyprus economy is also based on the good environment of the Mediterranean Sea. And I know that it's not just ships that they are registered in the Cyprus flag that they are mobilizing there. Yes. Do you have any...
Yeah, actually there's a lot of talk at EU level on whether the Mediterranean area should be treated separately as in terms of environmental regulations and stuff. We have some very... we're doing a lot of work on developing our views. We also do a lot of work trilaterally with the other 2 big flags in the EU, which are Malta and Greece. And so we have our next trilateral meeting on on Monday, actually, in Malta on Tuesday. So that's something that we will be discussing, whether, it's a fine balance, because you need to, on the one hand, obviously protect the environment and make sure that there are the right procedures in place, but there are also there's also the element of how to remain competitive. So you need whatever legislation is in place to apply basically internationally, in our view. So that's one of the challenges that we're discussing at IMO level. But we also need to make sure that there's consistent implementation. And the Mediterranean, yes, it's a closed sea. There are many countries of the EU that are, in the Mediterranean, but there's also countries that are not. So we need to make sure that whatever is introduced will actually be applicable to everyone and not just to the EU countries. So thank you for that. And panelists, please.